Alrighty, CNT140. We are working on our telephone cabling lab. So the first part of the lab, we're going to terminate a phone cable. The second part of the lab, we're going to use the simulator to hook that cable up and get it functioning in the network. So this podcast is just going to be focused on making our telephone patch cable. So you will need, out of your supply bag, okay, you will need our flat, non-paired phone cable. We'll need a couple of the RJ11s. That's the smaller one that's in there. Okay, look for those. We'll need the tester for when we're done to check the cable for function. And we'll need our crimping tool. Okay? And actually the crimping tool has on the cutter and the stripper that we'll need. This section here cuts the cable. This over here allows us to strip the insulation off. So literally that's all we need for this part. All right. I'm going to set my meter aside, and I'm going to set my crimper aside for right now, and I'm going to get my cable out. And the first thing we want to do is this cable here, if by chance this is crooked, trim that up. And to do that, I'm just going to use this part of my cutter right here. This side strips over here, this side cuts. I'm just going to feed that in, make sure the cable is nice and straight, and then give it a squeeze, and it'll kind of nip the end off. So I got a little piece off there and got it straight, and I'll do the same thing on the other end as well. Lay it in there, and I'm just kind of taking the end off just a little bit. And that end is now cleared off. Okay, next thing we need to do is we need to strip a little bit of the insulation off the end for our connector. We don't need a lot, just a little bit, and we're going to do that in this part of the crimper tool. There's actually two blades in there that come down, almost close, and nick each side of the cable, and we can just pull the cable out and leave the insulation in there. There is actually a stop here, but that's a little too far, a little too much insulation. So we're going to go maybe about halfway in. Okay. Keep it nice and square. I'm going to squeeze down. I'm going to hold it, and I'm just going to kind of wiggle my cable and then pull the cable out, and it pulls the insulation right off. Okay, that'll be one end. I can do the other end after a little bit. Get my scrap out of there. There we go. My RJ11 connector, I'm going to slide that right on the end. I have a little bit of stray insulation there. I'm going to slide that on the end. I'm going to look for two things. I'm going to look to make sure the little wires get to the end of the connector, and I can kind of see that here. See the colored wires get to the end of the connector, but I'm also making sure the gray part gets into the connector and gets crimped. And right now these are too long, so I'm going to use that trimmer part and just give it just a little, if you can see what I'm doing there, just a little bit off the end, not a lot, just a little bit. I'm going to try my connector again. That's looking better. The colored wires get to the end, and the gray part's in far enough that when I crimp, it'll grab a hold. So I'm now going to use, on this crimper, there is a smaller opening here, a larger opening here. This is for 4 and 6 pin connectors. This is for 8 pin. You'll actually see 6P and 8P. The 8P, this will be for our data connectors, the RJ45s. We'll use that later. Right now we're going to use the 6P over here. And you'll notice there's a notch out in the bottom, so we got to flip our cable over so the clip or the clicky tab slides into there, and it's going to be stiff, but I'm going to slide it in. I'm going to give it some pressure in to make sure the cable does not slide out, and I'm going to crimp my connector. Now, if I only squeeze part way, the ratchet mechanism locks and won't let me open the tool. So I literally need to, give a little bit of muscle, squeeze it. When I've squeezed it far enough, this ratchet mechanism will open and allow me to pull the connector out. To pull the connector out, I might need to kind of get a good hold of it and just kind of ease it out. That end is crimped. We're going to repeat that on the other end of the cable. There will be one small change, but we're going to repeat this process on the other end. So I'm going to feed my cable in, not the whole way, maybe about halfway, nice and square. Hold down on the crimper, kind of wiggle the cable to pull the wires out, or pull the insulation off the wires. Those look like they're a little long, so I'm going to give them a trim right now, just a little bit off the end. And I'm going to put another RJ11 on this end. The only difference is if I have black on this side over here, I need to make sure black is on this side now. So if I look at the cable, black is on the right side over here now. I need to make sure black is on the left side, and I have the clicky tab up, both clicky tabs up. This needs to be a rollover cable, reversal cable, if I'm going to connect a phone to an outlet on the wall. So I got to make sure that the pin out of one is the opposite of the other one. So I'm going to lay them there, double check that, and they are. And I'm going to make sure the little wires get to the end, and I'm going to make sure the connector is going to grab a hold of that gray part, and it is. So again, I can feed that into my crimper. Okay, let me put her in there. I'm going to hold in with a little bit of pressure. Make sure it's in there. Give it a good squeeze. Maybe do a little bit of muscle on it. And then I should be able to slide it out of my crimping tool. All right. So now my phone cable's crimped. The only thing left to do is to test it. So in my toolkit should be my tester like so. This is a continuity meter. There's actually a battery in this end. It's going to send a signal through the wires to the other end here. This is going to loop it back to here. And if there's a full path from here to here and back, we'll get a light indicating that wire pair is good. Now, this is really designed to test data cable, but it will also test phone cable. So it's actually looking for all 8 wires to be working and functioning, but we only have 4. There's only 4 wires here. So we're going to pay attention to the middle wires, the 3, 6, and the 4, 5. The 1, 2, and 7, 8 are going to show failure because they're the outside pairs. We're going to ignore that, and we're just going to focus in the middle. And since we made this cable that flipped over, the color code flipped over, we should see 3 and 6 and 4 or 5 indicate that they're flipped around or they're reversed. That's exactly what I should be seeing. So I'm going to carefully slide it in. It might take just a little bit of force, but should not be too much. We're going to click that in. There we go. It clicks in. These are new meters, so it might be a little stiff. Okay. I'm now going to just lay both ends here next to it. I'm going to hit the test button, and you saw it go through all 8, all 4 pairs, if you will, and it's showing 3, 6, and 4, 5 are reversal. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. This is a perfectly good phone cable. So what you'll need to do now, as proof of making your phone cable, while your meter's hooked up, use your phone, use your laptop, use your tablet, whatever you got, and take a picture of this testing, or if you need to, do a short video, a couple second video, and show me this tester with this cable. And you're going to submit that to D12 for proof of doing this part of the lab. Okay? So there's the first part of our phone cable lab. Next podcast, I'm going to be showing you our packet tracer and using this type of cable in a phone network.